Welcome back to the last section of the course. And in this section, we will deploy our application to a live server on the internet, so that your application basically lives as a website on the internet that you can then share with everyone you know. But before we do that, let's add some finishing touches to our application and then create a so-called production build. So the application that we planned to build in the beginning is now almost ready. However, there are of course many other things that we could have done here in this application to make it a bit more complete and a bit more real world. And I will talk a little bit about that later. But for now, one more small thing that I want to do is to add some kind of label to a fact when the votes false are more than these two votes. So more than the interesting and the mind-blowing votes together. Because that will probably mean that the fact is not true. And so then the users of your application, they should know that. So in an app like this, it would be really important for people to know that a fact is not true. So we can very easily do that by adding one element here to this paragraph, which when the votes false is greater than the sum of these, we will display that element. And so that element then says that the fact is disputed. So let's do that actually. And let's enter JavaScript here. And let's say if is disputed, and we didn't create that variable yet, but we will in a second. For now, I just want to create the HTML here, or the JSX actually. So let's say if is disputed, and so again, we're using our ternary here, then let's place a span here with the class name of disputed, which we will create in a minute. And then let's just add some brackets here, disputed, like this, or else just basically don't render anything here. So just null. Now, is disputed does not exist. Here, let's maybe add some emoji to make it even a bit more visible. Let's use this one. All right. And now all we need to do is to create is disputed. So how should we do that? Do you think we should use a piece of state for that? Well, that's actually not necessary, because just like a few times before, this variable, so this is disputed, can be completely calculated from some other data that we already have. So that's the fact, right? So fact dot votes interesting plus fact dot votes mind-blowing should be less than votes for false. And this I think we actually already did in the previous section. So facts dot votes false, of course. All right, now let's check that out. And we don't have any situation like that yet. But here, if we click this now, then we get the disputed flag here basically. So telling us that this fact here might not really be true. So now these two are 0. And so this one is more than 0 plus 0. But now let's click here. And so now we are not really sure anymore. And so that label is gone. Let's just quickly create a class here for disputed. Add some styles there. Let's do that a bit more at the top. So disputed, let's give it a red color, and let's actually use the one that we have been using in our app. So that's right here. Copy paste that. Let's make it a bit bold. 600, and I'll also give it some margin to the right. 10 pixels, let's say. Now we need to actually get it back. That was the wrong button. So one more time, and there it is. So that looks quite nice. And then immediately the user can see, maybe there's something wrong with this fact. Let me maybe check the source here. All right. And now there's just one thing that is different from the original app and this app. So if we come here and I start scrolling, you will see that actually this part here stays in place, and actually everything stays in place. And the only thing that is scrolling when I scroll on my mouse is actually this list, right? So everything else is staying in place. And so let me now show you how we can do that with just CSS. So there are two things that we need to do for that. First of all, we need to define that this entire container needs to have exactly the height of the viewport. So of this browser part here that is visible. So we call that the viewport. So that element is the root, right? So let's right click here. So this root here, we now need to tell it that it should only have the height of the viewport. So we can do that because we have a special unit in CSS where each of them is basically 1% of the entire viewport height. So if we say 100 viewport heights, then we get 100%. Okay, but that's only one piece of the puzzle. And let's actually set it to a little bit less for now. Let's say 80 VH. But this will not yet make any difference, because now we also need to go to the closest child that contains this list here. So that's this section. So we need to select this section, and then we need to do something with it. So let's simply select section because we only have one. So I will do that just right here. So section, and then overflow scroll. So let's see. Well, that didn't work. Let's reload. And that still doesn't work. Yeah, I know what the problem is. So actually we need to define the height of this main element. So yeah, let's see. Let's inspect it here. Yeah, so this main element is what needs to get the defined height. And then this section here is where we then place, so this overflow scroll. So let's try that again. Save again. And you see, let's make it even smaller for now. 60, let's say. And in order to see the effect, we need to close this down. And yeah, so if I scroll now, you see that down here, basically this list ends. So the height of this container is now only all the way to here. Let's make it a bit smaller. But then we cannot see the elements. Yeah, so here, this main part now only has this height. So this 60 VH. It is just stretched out a little bit more, so in order to fit this content. But if we say, for example, 80 VH, then you see that this is the height. And so then it basically kind of cuts off this list here at the bottom. So let's fix that here with padding bottom with this. And then also here we need to actually calculate the exact height. And the way we do that is by using the calc function. So CSS also actually has a few functions built in, and one of them is the calc function. So let's write 100 VH, which is everything. So that would be the entire height of the thing. But now we need to subtract basically the height of this header and these paddings, because what we want then to be in the end is the entire space from the bottom to up here. So where this main element starts. Let's give it a background color here again, like this red. Okay, and so this now we want to calculate the exact height. So that height needs to be again 100 VH minus the height of this. So let's inspect. So of this entire header here. And so we see the height here is 68 pixels. So let's subtract minus 68 pixels. And it's important that you leave the space there. Then we need to subtract the 40 pixels that go here between the header and this part. And then also the padding that goes around the page. And so that padding is 48 on the top and on the bottom. So minus 48 pixels minus 48 pixels. Give it a save, but that also doesn't look so right. So let's see what's wrong here. So yeah, so we have the padding at the top, 48, and on the bottom as well. But actually we want on the bottom now to be 0 pixels. So that's the first step we need to change so that in the end we have, so we can have it really come here all the way to the bottom. So that's why we now need 0 pixels of padding in the bottom. And then also there is some media query somewhere that is changing our body, I think. Let's see where that is. Yeah, so right here, actually, at some media query, this padding here is changed. So I need to deactivate this now. All right. And then let's again recalculate the height of our main. So where is that? Yeah, right here. So again, the entire height of the entire element would be 100 VH, but we only want to set the height from here all the way to the bottom. So we need 100 VH minus this 48 here from here to here. So that's one of these 48s we have. Let's do it in order. So minus 48 pixels. Then we have 68 pixels from here to here. So minus 68. And then we have 40 pixels. So these two, I guess, we are not needing. Let's see. Now it goes all the way to the end. And yeah, so I'm scrolling now here and the page is not scrolling up and down. But if I scroll here, then only the list scrolls. And so that is exactly what we were looking for. All right. So now this looks even more a bit like an application because this is quite common. So that you have some parts static like this and then some others you can scroll around. Okay, and with this, we actually really wrapped up our project here. Now, as I was saying in the beginning, in a more real-world project, we could change many things or do many other things. We could do some things differently or also add some more features. For example, we could give the users the option to sort these facts, for example, by the recency or by the number of mind-blowing votes or by the number of false votes or also some other things. So sorting is something quite common in web applications, which we didn't do here. And another thing that we probably should even do is to limit each person to only vote once on a fact. So here we can now upvote a fact and then upvote again and again and again and as many times as we want. And so in a real world app, that's not possible. For example, on Reddit, you can only upvote a fact once. And the way they prevent that is that you can only upvote a fact if you're actually logged in. And so that would be one option, of course. So to have the user logged in into this application, and only then they could vote here. And also only then they could share a new fact. And for everyone else, so for users that are logged out, they could then not do that. And so that's what we call authentication And that's something that most web applications actually have. But of course, here in this crash course, we also left that out. Okay, but anyway, let's now finish this lecture by creating a so-called production build. So right now what we have here, we cannot really upload this to a server. So basically what we have right now is only these source files, and then we have the entire React library and all the other libraries inside the Node modules folder. Right? But this is not what we can upload to a server. Instead, we need to create, as I just said, a so-called production build. And this will then bundle all these modules together and all the files that we created into just some HTML and some JavaScript. So let me show you how to do that. So we need to once again open up our terminal. And we have still this one open from before. And here this one is still running our application. And we can now finish this. So we could click here on this kill button. And now if we were trying to reload now, then it's gone. All right. But anyway, let's now do our production build. So it's again important that you are here in the Today I Learned folder, and then just type npm run build. Okay. And this will now take some time. And again, what it will do is that it will take all the files that we wrote here and all these libraries that are needed. So that's React, and all these other thousands of libraries here, they will all basically get bundled into just 1 or 2 or 3 files. So which are in here, which we can then upload to a server. So let's see, this build folder here is the one that got created. And so here we have the index.html, we have our logo, we have the CSS, and we have the JavaScript. So all the JavaScript was now simply placed in this one file. So this basically unreadable file, it looks like complete gibberish or gibberish, I don't know. But all the code that we wrote is actually in here together with all the rest of the JavaScript. So that all got bundled, as we say, into this one folder. And so this build folder is what we can now upload to a web server. And so that's what we will do in the next lecture.